I use the magic of teenagers on Snapchat to decimate my ex's social life for the rest of high school. Cast: Daryl, me. I'm about 6 feet 5, 220 pounds. I'm a little on the chunkier side, but I have a lot of muscle, and I'm decent looking. My dad's a priest in the local Catholic church, and I take my faith seriously. I'm also a pretty genuine and nice guy, albeit a bit sarcastic and tactless sometimes. But when it comes down to it, I'm pretty mellow, and it takes a lot to set me off. But when you make me mad, it's all over. Carrie, cheating whore. She's a pretty girl of average build who's about 5 feet 3. She looks soft, but could also beat most people in a fight no problem. In addition to that, she's insanely smart and has been at the very top of our class since 5th grade. Because of this, she's not nearly as popular with girls in our school as she'd like to be, despite being super involved and athletic. But boy is she popular with guys. She's developed a weird need for male approval that's pretty deeply ingrained in her psyche, and she has an almost pathological need to be liked. This all becomes important later. Sadie, Carrie's best friend. She's a taller, super athletic girl who's super nice, despite giving off a slightly bitchy vibe at times. She's one of Carrie's circle of female friends, including a few other girls who aren't important enough to feature in the story. She's also super loyal, and she's been there for Carrie the whole way, when nobody else was. That loyalty is important later too. Noah, one of my friends. I've known him for slightly shorter than everyone else. He's a year older than the other characters in this story. He's a shorter guy, and skinnier than a rail. He also wants to go into the US Navy, and can be a bit of a dick sometimes, but is overall a super nice guy who I always get along well with. Gabe, Carrie's ex and another of my friends. He's a really funny, yet painfully stupid individual. He makes some irresponsible / questionable choices, but he's a really nice guy who is pretty popular and well liked in our school by other students. Later on in this story, he'll become important as well. Carrie, another one of Carrie's friends. She's super religious to the point of being pretty judgmental of other people's lives, but she's also incredibly nice and sweet to everybody around her, and doesn't have a mean bone in her body. She carries a lot more influence in our school than it would appear, especially with the innocent goody two-shoes crowd that Carrie tries really hard to be a part of. Backstory time. So I, Daryl, grew up in small town Ohio, in a super rural community, like, population 500. In a community this small, most towns share a high school, and mine is no different. I go to a high school of about 400 students, so everyone there knows everybody. This becomes important later. School is where I met Carrie back in 8th grade. At the time, she and Gabe were a steady couple, and they would continue to date until midway through our sophomore year of high school, when Gabe got busted on a minor drug charge and was expelled. While he was expelled, he was still able to keep up his friendships with most of the guys from our school, and we helped talk him through his breakup with Carrie. I know I'm probably the asshole here, but within a few months of Gabe and Carrie's breakup, Carrie and I hit it off and started dating exclusively at the beginning of our junior year. This drove a bit of a wedge between Gabe and I, as he still wasn't totally over her. Carrie and I got to know each other over Snapchat, and after weeks of having Sadie telling us we should date almost every waking moment, we eventually did. We dated exclusively for almost 8 months. I'm talking 8 months of snapping each other good morning, I love you, and good night kisses every day, and talking non-stop all day long at school, and over most weekends. She would become my first kiss, as well as the first person in almost 4 years to open up to about a lot of emotional problems I don't share with most people. Her parents, brothers, and her little sister adored me, and I loved being able to spend time with them too. But keep in mind, this is a revenge story, so obviously, something went wrong between us. Enter Noah into the story. Noah and I are similarly minded, and we agree on almost everything, so I grew to trust him a lot over the year. He and I were good friends, although we both ran in different friend groups. He's a very musical, theatrical kid, and I'm nowhere near as talented as he is in those areas. So when Noah started hanging out with us in early April of that year, I thought nothing of it, and was excited to be able to hang out with Noah more outside of school. Around this time, Carrie stopped talking to me as much as we had before, and started hiding things from me. She'd go dark on social media for hours and then tell me she was with Sadie and Carrie or with her family. Like an idiot, I took this at face value. I trusted her completely and she knew it. So when she texted me a few weeks later and told me that Noah asked her to talk to him about some of his anxieties about the Navy, she assured me that it would be a completely civil conversation at a public park. Neither of us had ever been controlling of each other in any way, and I wasn't about to start then. A few days after that, Carrie and Noah both ghosted me. I snapped Carrie that morning and never heard from her again normally. She started ignoring me at school, and I was shocked by this. However, by this point, it was late May, and we were set to leave for the summer already, at which point I'd be overseas with some church friends for about 6 weeks. I spent literal days out of my mind with confusion, sadness, and near hysteria as I tried to piece back together Carrie and I's relationship that had meant the world to me for nearly a year. Eventually, Carrie agreed to meet with me, and she told me that she wanted to take a break from dating so that she could focus on spending time with her family. I later learned that this was a steaming pile of bullshit before her older brother moved off to Georgia the next fall. She told me that the next fall, she wanted to give dating another try, and she wanted to remain being friends with me because she cared about me. I left for the summer with most of my questions unanswered and in a totally foul mood. I was depressed and sad about what happened back home, and I was more focused on what was happening back home than what was happening in front of my eyes. But when I got a text from Sadie about 2 weeks later, everything became crystal clear. Revenge starts here. Sadie confirmed my suspicions, which Carrie had bluntly assured me were false. For about the entire last half of May, Carrie had been cheating on me with Noah. I wish I could say I took it well, but I didn't. I was crushed, devastated, and betrayed. But like any good pro-revenge story, that sadness cooled into anger pretty damn fast. That was when I put into motion my grand plan to absolutely decimate Carrie's last year of high school and her name around the town, all while hundreds of miles removed from the situation. It turns out, I wasn't the only one Carrie had lied to and fucked over. Sadie was beyond pissed off at Carrie and told me she had absolutely zero interest in ever speaking to Carrie again. This provided me with the first facet of my plan. Sadie told me all the damning evidence on what Carrie had lied to me about. First of all, Carrie had told me she was a virgin. She wasn't. While Carrie had done a good job of putting on a facade of being a goody two-shoes church girl, she had actually done some pretty fucked up shit. I learned that Carrie had gone through a depressed phase where she lost almost all the self-esteem she had, and I knew that if I struck back, I could put her right back in there. Am I an asshole? Probably. Sadie apologized to me for what happened, wished me well, and we kinda lost touch with each other after that. But I was just getting started. I told you that Gabe was going to be important later. Turns out that some of the fucked up shit Carrie had done was with him while they were dating. Apparently she was pretty heavily into roleplay, S&M, and group sex with other women. Keep in mind, we live in a conservative religious community. I personally have nothing but respect for the LGBTQ community. She had told me she was a highly committed virgin and claimed that she barely even knew what oral sex was. Turns out, she loved it, and Gabe had screenshots of their texts to prove it. Gabe had been holding these cards for a long time and was waiting for a chance to play them for himself so he could get his own revenge on Carrie. He just needed to be pointed in the right direction. That weekend, Gabe went to a party with all the chads in our grade. A loud-mouthed, extremely popular crowd. One of the people attending was Carrie's cousin. A perfect venue for Gabe to do some show and tell. It worked. Gabe got shit-faced as soon as he got there, passed his phone around, and told everyone who would listen about all the shit he and Carrie had done, including Carrie's horrified cousin, and several boys in the church youth group she was currently a student leader in. The first nail in the coffin of her reputation had been driven. Most of the good church boys at the fire lost interest in her after that, and the others immediately saw her as easy and began chasing after her when they would have dismissed her as a prig mere hours before. Naturally, them being loud mouths, they spread the word fast. It wasn't long before most of the school knew all of this, including that she cheated on priest's son Daryl Noland. The second blow was to the sport she loved most and looked forward to for all of high school, volleyball. She was so excited for her senior season, as her, Carrie, and Sadie would all be starting that year, and were pumped to make a super close team that was all friends with each other. I saw that as target number 2. That night, I started texting Carrie. Our conversation went something like this. Daryl, hey Carrie, how's summer? Carrie, OMG Daryl. How's the overseas trip? Is everything going okay? Meaningless small talk ensues. Daryl, listen, can you pray for Carrie? She's in a bit of a bad place right now, and I just really want her to get better. Carrie, I saw she's dating Noah now. I'm so sorry Daryl. What happened? Daryl spills everything to her, obviously depressed over text, and appears worried. Carrie, are you serious? I never thought she'd be the kind of person to do that ever. I can't believe she'd treat anyone like that. Daryl, me either, but can you still pray for her and be a good friend? It would mean a lot to her. Carrie, okay, I can try. Keep in touch Daryl. That conversation went nuclear. Carrie may be a super deep spiritual girl, but she has no patience for the shit Carrie pulled after being cheated on herself the previous year. Teenage girls are teenage girls, and within the next few weeks, the volleyball team absolutely hates each other. Sides get take, feelings get hurt, blah blah blah. Anyways, they went on to have the first losing season in 7 years. Nail number 2 has been driven. Carrie had lots of adult friends, which was one reason her and her cousin, remember him, were elected co-class presidents without an election last year. After what her cousin heard about her, he stopped confiding in her, their friendship died utterly, and now they are stuck together as presidents who can barely talk to each other. The student council tanked after that, and most of our events for senior year like homecoming and other events only got half planned, because nobody could cooperate with Carrie anymore. She blamed me for the entire situation. But because I was overseas, I convinced her I had nothing to do with any of the shit that had hit the fan while I was away. She bought it and never spoke to me again. Now, she has exactly 0 friends in our entire community. After they found out what kind of person she really was, she lost all her credibility with the student body, and even some adults who hear gossip among students. The only boys interested in her now are the local fuckboys whom she sees as beneath her. Her mom is super rich, and thus so is she. I still see her at school sometimes, sitting at a table in the library with Carrie. She's too nice to abandon Carrie completely, looking sorry for herself as her other former friends now want nothing to do with her. Icing on the cake, Noah went off to the Navy, came back after it didn't work out, some health problems that he was unaware of, and promptly dumped her after he lost interest in dating a high schooler. He went on to join a startup company with another former student, and is doing really well for himself these days. I see him sometimes, and I'm still friends with him. We've forgiven each other, and moved on from Carrie completely. I guess maybe I shouldn't have given him the time of day again, but at the end of the day, I don't really blame him for what happened, and even though he screwed me over, he genuinely apologized for what happened, which Carrie never did. I'm not one to hold a grudge for that long, and life's too short to hate either of them forever. I've since forgiven both of them, but the damage I did to Carrie's social life was already done. She changed her college to one far away from our town a few weeks ago, and honestly, I'm happy she'll get a chance to start over. I'm just glad I never have to see her again. Hit like and subscribe with notifications on, and your crush will love you forever.